Hatito, hello, I'm Maya Grace in case you don't know, and today I'm going to talk to you about goth clothes. If you're an alt girly or even like a spooky NB or a vampiric little gentleman, you probably shop online for a majority of your clothing. About 9 times out of 10, there just isn't a place to go in person and like touch and feel the clothing and try it on. You just really don't always know what you're getting. So I really want to share my brand knowledge and everything that I learned working in the goth shop and as a sewist myself who's able to kind of get a feel for materials. My hobby is kind of like mocking clothing and the way that they're constructed and the decisions that were made behind the scenes. So I feel like this is a really good application for my skills. I'm not gonna like fully say that I'm like de-influencing you because like if you want to shop online for your clothes, shop online for your clothes. If you want to buy from affordable goth brands, buy from affordable goth brands. If you're going to wear it for the rest of your life or until it completely falls apart and is totally unusable, then it's not fast fashion. It's only fast fashion if you're going through a phase. But I'm gonna go brand by brand and tell you everything an informed consumer of dark goods ought to know, starting with Dark in Love. Now, Dark in Love is a TaoBao brand, a Chinese indie brand, and they're just about everywhere. From Killstar to Dolls Kill, small boutiques tend to have them. Even the year-round Halloween store in Michigan had their skirts on their merchandise floor, which was like really comforting and nostalgic to see because this brand is like, it's almost like family for me. Like I see that little shiny anglerfish and I just, my heart swells. I think that part of the reason why this brand is everywhere is because they are so agreeable and easy to work with and easy to order from. Like they really do want to sell to Westerners. Like J-fashion brands, sometimes that's not the case. Shout out Oz on set. I love the design of Dark in Love. Their stuff inspires me to look at materials in new ways and to problem solve and embellish things in unconventional ways. All of the pieces that I have by them, I wear literally all the time. You probably will recognize some of the pictures from like other videos that I've made on my YouTube channel because I only stop wearing them when they literally fall apart. I've only thrown away one piece by them and it was the skirt that just fell to shreds. Now, Dark in Love is a little bit controversial in general just because Chinese manufacturing does get a hell of a reputation. From the Zanyu cotton scandals to rumors of sweatshops. It just conjures up an image whenever someone says TaoBao. I can't say that Dark in Love does or doesn't use the slave labor cotton. It's really kind of hard to figure out which brands do and don't, but they've never publicly bragged about using it. So that's something. Honestly, don't know what the working conditions of their manufacturing floor are like. If it turns out in a year from now that all of Dark in Love's clothing were manufactured by like little abused orphans, then like I will eat my foot and be mortified, actually. I really hope this was, I mean, not necessarily made with love, but at least not made by someone who was like crying the whole time. Also, I can't not mention TaoBao is a pain to order from. You have to do a big order to make it worth it. To log into their website with a phone number, you have to use a translator, you have to convert prices from yen to USD, and you have to pay for a shopping and shipping service that will like buy the items from China and then ship them to your address. It's not necessarily a waste of your time and money to buy a Dark in Love item not directly from TaoBao. Some people will say if it's a TaoBao brand, you should only ever buy it from TaoBao, but when you consider the markup in price when it's off TaoBao, it's sometimes worth the money to not have to go through the hassle. This is kind of the same controversy that Devil Inspired versus TaoBao gets into, where Devil Inspired is fully just a TaoBao reseller, but also like, are you really gonna go through all that? Cause I'm not, I'm lazy. Now, you might be scratching your head a little bit because when you see Dark in Love pieces, they tend to go for like 30 to 70 USD and TaoBao prices tend to be like $10 to $3. So there is a heck of a markup going on with Dark in Love pieces. And low prices tend to be concerning because that means that corners are being cut somewhere and hopefully it's not in paying the garment workers. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I suspect that they're using, to some degree, secondhand and dead stock materials. And I haven't spoken to any designers, like I said. I'm basing this solely off of observation, but the materials that they do use tend to have a very organic shredding or staining whenever they do have a shredded or stained garment, and it varies from piece to piece. And whenever you look at like 30 of the same garment, like I used to when I worked at the Goth shop, you can tell that the fabric the garments were cut from wasn't distressed in like a cookie cutter way. There was another time whenever we got a velvet dress with a moon charm on it, and the moon charm had the name of another like small Lolita brand. I can't remember which brand it was now, but the brand name was actually, it was embossed into the metal and it was backwards. So it was like etched on backwards. And it just gave the charm like a little bit of subtle texture because your brain didn't recognize the backwards cursive as letters. But whenever you looked like really close at 40 of them, it was like, wait, this says something. And when my coworker and I figured out that this was like a manufacturing error that was rescued and then put on a garment anyway, we thought it was so cool because it just would have wound up in the trash otherwise, and it looked really good on the dress. Personally, I have a lot of respect for them for rescuing and utilizing a material that otherwise would have been garbage. They also put a ton of love into their promo art. Even though it's always like the same one model in all of their clothes, I find that like kind of charming. She's almost like a comfort to look at because I see her so often. But whenever we would get like big shipments of clothing from them, they would give us these awesome like highly edited posters. It was very clear that they were putting everything into their design and like their brand image. I have massive respect for them for that because they could have just been like, we're a clothing wholesaler, we wholesale clothing for retailers, we don't care if anyone knows who we are. But they do care if people know who they are, and they put a lot of love into what they do, and you can tell that they're going above and beyond in certain ways. So kind of love how these posters look like an army of like fashionable Gothic clones are coming for you. One of us, one of us. This is kind of a neutral point, but they do take a lot of inspiration from Lolita brands like Moi-Même Moitié, and you can sometimes get the sense that they're going for like an Oz adjacent look, but none of their stuff is really like properly Lolable. Like you wouldn't look at it and immediately think like Lolita. They do have pieces that you can use and layer and work into a cord. Especially their capes are kind of great for that, and occasionally they'll make wrist cuffs. But like their main pieces just don't have the right proportions to get a petticoat into them and give you that like Lolita silhouette. They also tend to be a little bit too short. Like it would be a little bit too leggy to be paired in like a classic Lolita sort of way. Not a classic Lolita sort of way, but like it wouldn't read as Lolita to most people. On top of that, the materials are not always it. Like they're not on par with the quality of materials that fashion is known for, admittedly. Like I said, some of their capes are really high quality. Some of their wrist cuffs are really amazing because it's just lace. It's just Venetian lace or net lace and maybe a little bit of velvet. But whenever it starts getting into like their cottons and their other fabrics, they're not always great. Like sometimes the materials are really prone to pilling or falling apart. Their blacks do tend to leak dye the first few times that you wash them, and sometimes it is bad enough that the dye will transfer onto your skin while you're wearing them, which is not fun. It's very embarrassing. I had that happen at work where I was wearing a cape that we had just gotten in. It was this cute little lace capelet, and I moved it out of the way, and I had like my chest was kind of popping and the lace was covering it. I had like Smurf boobies basically. Like my whole chest had turned blue, which is not a good look when you're trying to sell people things from your store. I mean, that whole place was a literal dumpster fire, but that's a story for another time. I did have a black thin cotton and poly twill weave skirt by them. I had like this really cute old school inspired white lace, and I literally had to throw it out because it was falling apart and shredding. Like it had this big old bow on it, and the weight of the bow was tearing the fabric over time, which is so unacceptable. Also, the way that they do grommets, like their functional grommets, tend to fall apart. Their aesthetic grommets are set in super well, but their functional grommets like pull apart and fall out of the piece. Like in this bodice that I bought, the grommets are all popping out. This bodice was really bad about the grommets. We actually had to sell them at a discount for that reason, which is so sad because the rest of the material on it is actually like really quality. The grommets also fell out of this dress after the first couple of washes, which is really disappointing. Sometimes their hardware is plated and it will tarnish to a nickel color. So if you do get something from Dark and Love and it has like cute hardware on it that's like silver, I would go over it with some clear nail polish just so that it can't transfer and you're protected from the nickel underneath. Nickel isn't like a super great thing to be exposed to all the time. This brand is notorious for fake pockets and zippers to nowhere, especially in their tech wear and more punky looks. Sometimes that net lace just like isn't trimmed correctly as well, and you'll need to like go back over it and trim it and make it look how it was meant to look. And sometimes they'll use that like crusty Rochelle lace that you would find at like a Joann store for 99 cents in the bargain bin. Their black jersey is really hit or miss. I have this dress right here that I wear like 3 to 4 times a month. It's like one of my favorite dresses. I've had it for well over a year now and it is doing great. I also have this dress, which is thinning out and getting literal holes in it. I will show you, but there's a hole in the back of it. It is so cute and it makes such a cute tunic. And I've only washed it like 4 times in the actual washing machine. I've given it the dry clean spray treatment a couple of times, but like I'm scared to actually fully submerge and wash it, not by hand. Thin cotton is also what my favorite blouse is made out of. That blouse is going to fall apart sooner rather than later, so I've just taken to dry cleaning it as well. And this brings me to talking about their actual fit. This brand runs small. It also runs short. I tend to be a medium to a large in this brand, sometimes an extra large depending on the garment, so it's not super consistent. And this brand only goes up to a 2XL. Some things have more stretch to them, and sometimes the sizing is different between different runs. Like I said, it's not very consistent. This red dress, for example, is fitting people who were solidly plus sized, but then with our same order that we ordered that red dress, we had a black dress with a cute little collar, and that didn't fit the same people who would fit into like an XL or a 2XL. Sometimes they wouldn't be able to fit the black dress like at all. When I was styling clients, this actually wound up breaking a lot of hearts because people would find something and it would fit them great and they'd fall in love with it, and then they would get excited when we called them because we had another shipment in. Like they would ask to be on the call list for when we would get another shipment in because they liked what they had gotten before so much, and then it wouldn't fit them the same way, and this would make for a devastating dressing room experience. This would also be like a really bad experience if you ordered something online and waited months for it to get to you and then it didn't fit whenever you had plenty of other garments from that brand that did fit you. It does come to fit. Their cupped bodices tend to be borderline nonsensical. Like they have some really cute fitted bustier looking bodices on their dresses, and the cups are like actually flat. Like they look like a molded cup, but they don't actually like cup space. There's nowhere for the rest to go. So I think maybe they're just not designing for people who are older than like teenage. Like this kind of reads to me like a prepubescent sort of style, or maybe it's just, you know, Chinese women aren't endowed the same way, so that's how all bodices are cut there. If you have anything above like a B cup, it's kind of iffy as to whether or not it's gonna fit you and look good. All of their dresses and skirts and even their shirts sometimes are all short. Like I wind up laying other skirts under my Dark and Love dresses and wearing them more like a tunic than I would a dress, because even if they're long enough to be a mini dress on me, they have really good flow to them. And I'm not trying to flash anybody, but be cautious about price markup and make sure that it's actually like worth the money that you'll be spending. If you can like zoom in on the picture and like get an idea of how thick the fabric is, I personally wouldn't bother with anything that was like too thin looking. I would really pay attention to any dimensions or measurements on the garment because you want to get something that's gonna for sure fit you, and just because a medium fit you last time doesn't mean it's gonna fit you again this time. And that's definitely more true with this brand than with other brands. If it looks at all funky on the model, like if the fit of the bodice is all strange looking, I wouldn't go for it because it is going to look funkier on you. That model is probably like clipped and possibly hand sewn into the dress to make it look as good as possible. So if you're looking at it and thinking that's a little funky, it's gonna be bad. But all in all, happy shopping, or happy not shopping, because like I said, this brand makes for great sewing inspiration. And your girl has free printable sewing patterns in the description box below. You're welcome. I do have a very soft spot for this brand, even though they have stained my skin blue. Let me know in the description box below if there are any brands that you are really excited for me to get to, and I might move those up to the top of the list. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a like so that more awesome people like you can see it. If you subscribe, I will personally come to your house and I will whisper sweet things into your ear, like positive affirmations, so that when you wake up, you're like ready to take on the day. I'll like hunch on the corner of your bed and I'll be like, you're so beautiful and you're gonna have the best day ever. So subscribe for that. Bye, friends. I don't know if being unhinged at the end of the video actually like is good. Like, are people gonna subscribe because of that, or are people just gonna think I'm weird? I don't know. Do you have a really funny Dark and Love story for you though? Whenever I was working in the goth shop, we had this order from Dark and Love that we were waiting on, like really waiting on, because it had a bunch of new releases in it and we were gonna be like some of the first people to have them, so people weren't gonna come in and be like, I saw this on Killstar, which used to happen, and it was really annoying. And we finally got the shipment in and we were like unpackaging it, and one of my managers, she like goes on the walkie and she's like, you have to see what I just found in this bag. And I thought it was gonna be like a really cute item that we didn't realize how cute it was gonna be. Sometimes we would get clothing in that was like super cool and we'd be like, oh my gosh, it's even better in real life, you have to see this. But it was not that. Those little like clicky snippy scissors, like these ones, there was a pair of them in the bag with the blouse. Like, it was in the packaging. She like pulled it out and was like, how did this make it through customs? How did this make it over the border? Because like you can't mail weapons, and technically it's like a little shank. It hadn't damaged the garment, thankfully. It hadn't damaged the bag. So I would call it a win ultimately. But like, we did reach out to them and we were like, hey, just so you know, you like sent us a pair of scissors by accident. And they were like, oh my gosh, we are so sorry. And I think they sent us like some free tote bags or something because of it, because they felt like bad that they, you know, almost stabbed us. But yeah, Dark and Love tried to stab my manager and I still love them. So